Alright, so let's finish up the floors of our model, and while we're at it, we'll also add a slope to the garage floor for drainage purposes. I'll begin by switching to the second floor plan view. I'll use the tab key to select the second floor landing, and then use the type selection drop-down to switch this from a generic floor to one of the default compound floors in this template. In this case, I'll select a 12-inch wood truss floor with carpet finish. Now, I'll repeat the process for the second floor bedroom. Tab select the floor and switch the type from the drop-down. To modify the first floor, I'll switch to its plan view. And I want the first floor to have 6-inch concrete floors, but this floor type is not one of the defaults, so we'll have to create it manually like we did earlier for the roofs and walls. So I'll use the tab key until the floor highlights, click to select it, and then go to Edit Type in the Properties window. As always, I'll first duplicate one of the types before making edits. I'll duplicate the generic 6-inch floor type and name it Concrete Slab on grade 6 inches. Now, I can edit the structure. Hopefully, this process is starting to become pretty familiar to you by now. So, the thickness is already at 6 inches. I'm going to leave that alone. But I will change the material. I'll browse for cast-in-place concrete and click OK. This will be the structure layer, so I can just click OK to finish the floor and select it as the type. I can change the garage floor over to concrete slab on grade type as well. Next, let's add a slope arrow to the garage floor. Now, this is pretty common and easy to do. With the garage floor still selected, I'll edit its boundary. Next, I'll click the drop-down arrow to show the Draw tools. Notice there are a few other options available. I can add a boundary line, slope arrow, or span direction. I'll choose Slope Arrow. Now with the Line tool, I'll draw an arrow from the front of the garage floor to the other side where the floor meets the masonry wall. So this creates the slope arrow. The floor will be lower at the tail and highest at the head of the arrow. I'll make the height offset at the tail -2 inches just to lower it a bit, all right? Oh, and one thing we should do while we're here is adjust the floor boundary so it extends around the garage door. All right, I guess this is a pretty good opportunity for me to introduce a new tool, the Split Element tool, and you can find it on the Modify panel of the ribbon. With the Split Element tool active, I can click anywhere along a line or wall to split it into 2 separate lines or walls. So I'm going to go ahead and split the floor boundary right around the garage door. That should do the trick, so I can press Escape to exit the tool. And you can see 2 individual line segments now highlight when I hover the mouse over them. Now I can use Pick Lines to finish the rest of the boundary. I'll select the edges of the garage door, use Tab and the messages below to make sure you're selecting the door and not the wall. And I'll go ahead and lock the line to it when Revit gives me the chance. And this creates those nice parametric relationships that we love so much and will guarantee that the floors update without any errors if width of the garage door ever changes. I'll also select the outermost edge of the garage wall and lock that as well. So that gives us everything we need for the boundary. So now I just need to use the Trim and Extend tool to clean it up. Remember, with Trim and Extend, you keep what you click. With the boundary complete, I'll click the green check to finish the floor. Revit asks if I want the walls that extend up to the floor to be attached. I'm not 100% certain that I do, so I'm going to click No. And let's switch to the 3D view and take a look at what we've just done. Well, you can see the floor extends into the foundation walls below the first level. This is not good. We'll have to do some cleanup work here. Since it's the foundation walls that run through our first floor right now, I'll switch to the foundation plan. I'll use the Split Element tool again to split the foundation walls. Now with the walls split, I'll select 1/2 and drag it to the other side of the floor, aligning the walls to the floor a little easier. Next, I'll use the Align tool to align and parametrically lock the foundation walls to the garage floor. You probably remember by now, with the Align tool, you select the target first. Remember to use the Tab key and pay attention to the messages in the bottom left corner to be sure you're selecting what you want. The order you align things also determines the order in which they will update. Earlier, we aligned the floor to the doors, and we're aligning the foundation to the floor. I'll repeat this process on the other side, and that should take care of it. So let's take another look at the 3D view. The floor looks pretty good, and we can see it's got a nice little gradient, but the garage door is now hanging above the bottom. This is a quick fix. Just select the garage door and adjust the sill height in its properties. I'll drop it 6 inches so it sits flush with the floor. Now you might be wondering how I knew to drop it 6 inches. Well, if you remember, when we first created the garage floor, we gave it an initial offset of -4 inches, and then we added another 2-inch drop when we created the slope arrow. 2 plus 4 makes 6, so that's the distance we needed to drop the garage door sill height so it sits flush. Now, before wrapping up, let's test the relationships we just created, okay? With the garage door selected, I'll click on Edit Type. Instead of duplicating, I'm going to break a rule right here just for a second. All right, I'm going to edit the width and increase it. I'll change it right back, I promise. Again, I don't ever recommend doing this without duplicating first, but just as a quick test, I'll set the width to 11 feet and press OK. And everything updated nicely. All that aligning and locking paid off. All right, before I forget, let me change the garage door width back to 8 feet. Much better.